When we first started looking into the Kowloon Wall City, also known as the densest city in the world, we thought, for a place that's essentially a slum, full of crime, drugs, and inhumane living conditions, there's sure a lot of romanticization about this place. In Japan, they even built a giant arcade that mimics parts of the city. And I get it. It looks like it came straight out of some dystopian sci-fi novel. A giant megastructure, part architecture, part living organism. It's like a real-life manifestation of Hive City, and it's actually something architects have been dreaming about for years. One continuous structure where you can access all the necessities of daily life that evolves and grows with time. But there's also stories after stories from people who's lived there or visited there that claim to have fond memories of this place, describing it as an energetic, industrious patchwork of chaos with a strange, compelling beauty. Beauty. How could this possibly be beautiful? So Kowloon Wall City, could it be more than just chaos? I want to give you a sense of how dense it was. Here's the density of LA, New York, Hong Kong, and Kowloon Wall City. And it almost tripled in population in just a few decades. So how did this happen? Kowloon Wall City was a city within the Hong Kong territory that was technically a part of China. Over its lifespan, from this small Chinese military fort hundreds of years ago to this, it was used as a political pawn between the conflict between China and Britain, where both parties were more interested in exerting power than actually governing this piece of land. In the end, the tension became unsolvable, so both parties decided to take a hands-off approach. So it was left alone. And without any government control or police presence, it just grew and grew, almost like a living organism. Buildings were built cheaply and quickly to accommodate the huge influx of migrants. A mass number of Chinese refugees flooded here after World War II, because it was known as the only Chinese enclave that the Hong Kong government couldn't touch. But after that, it included anyone and everyone from gangs, criminals, to doctors, to entrepreneurs, trying to escape poverty or trying to capitalize on this unregulated haven. Crime naturally flourished there, with gangs, drugs, brothels, whatever you can think of. If you had an industrial business, you could ignore the fire codes, labor codes, or safety codes, so you could produce goods at a fraction of a cost. You could also sell things that were banned anywhere else, like dog meat. With unbeatable prices, industry kind of thrived there. And lots of things made their way back to Hong Kong, China, and sometimes even overseas. They were known especially for their fish balls. The more we learned about it, there was this idea that kept popping up. The rhizome. But it's kind of complicated concept, so I'm gonna hand it over to Cindy, our research assistant and Hong Kong native.
Rhizome 就好似呢棵葱嘅根莖咁。你唔會揾到佢嘅主軸或者中心點，佢會隨性咁向唔同方向生長，成個結構都係連結嘅。
Alright, let's try again. To explain, we have Raf, our Italian filmmaker.
Actually, it's like this plate of pasta right here. Since they are so entangled together, you can't really see the beginning or the end. It's like a decentralized network. Deleuze and Guattari use their rhizome as a metaphor for a new model of thinking that could affect society, philosophy, and culture. This could help us make connections in unexpected ways. What the heck is this?
Try it, it's good.
Actually, pretty good.
呢個就係 rhizome 美好嘅位啦。
The first rule of the rhizome is that it's multiple multiplicities without a structure. Let me explain. So in a traditional city, you have your city grid, and they get populated with buildings with functions that are determined by your planning department. You have your circulation at the base, and that's how you get from here to here. But in Kowloon Wall City, buildings would get built, leaving these small gaps for air and light, but very quickly they get filled with stairways, which sometimes connected 2 or 3 or 4 buildings. The city had around 350 buildings, but eventually they all merge into one giant megastructure. The rooftops would connect, forming one giant rooftop, and even the residential units were connected to each other. And since not all of the units had electricity, it allowed them to share things like power out of a single source. It especially allowed businesses to expand strategically and organically. Let's look over here. This is a strip club, but the real money was in gambling. So they connected these 2 buildings to lure people in with the strip club and eventually bring them down here. So new buildings could attach and be integrated to existing structures. And with every new building, new circulation paths are formed, which evolve and expand with the growth of the city. And at the intersection of these stairs or alleys, nodes would organically emerge. Here, we see a small convenience store that serves the people living in the upper story so they don't have to travel all the way down. The city also only had a few roads that had some semblance of order. Over here and here, we had the commercial areas. Because of their direct connection to the outside, it was full of shops and clinics and factories that naturally gathered on the ground level. Chinese doctors and dentists who couldn't afford to get re-licensed in Hong Kong set up shop here, and they offered their services for bargain prices, which attracted customers from even outside of the city. Residential units sat on the levels above, and this created some of the most attractive units in the city thanks to the daylight. This street is called Kwangming Street, directly translating into light and bright, because apparently it was always lit up at night because drug addicts would come here and get high. Both these areas had lots of factories. You could get vehicle access here and water access here, so food factories naturally gathered in this area. But most of the residents actually moved through the hundreds of alleys and secret paths, which all twisted and turned, stepped up and down, and cut through multiple buildings. So unlike a typical city, where you have one point of connection, you have multiple points of connection vertically and horizontally between multiple spaces. In fact, it would be impossible to map the entire network of the city with conventional mapping methods. So if you can't map it, and without traditional landmarks or views, how do they navigate a city like this? Kowloon generic romance, based in Kowloon Wall City. It's a little risque, but there's a recurring theme: memory and nostalgia. Here, the protagonist goes up to a shop and feels certain romantic feelings for her colleague, but the next day, she can't find her way back to the same shop. Living here means you need to create your own unique mental map that's tailored to your personal experiences and routines. There's not one map of the city, but 33,000 different versions of Kowloon Wall City that evolves and updates just as the city transforms over time. It's interesting because Deleuze and Guattari also argue that a map should never be a static representation, because that fixes your thinking about a certain place. When your idea of a thing is fluid and evolving, you can be much more creative in how you use that thing. So in that sense, the city becomes not just a backdrop, but an active participant in the shaping of the memories and identities of the residents. But unlike a rhizome, Kowloon Wall City had a boundary, a very abrupt boundary. So Kowloon Wall City started as a military fort with an actual wall around it. That's where the name came from. They built this fort after Britain occupied Hong Kong as a way to create a visible Chinese military presence near the new British colony. But during World War II, Japan had taken over swaths of China, including Hong Kong, and when they needed building materials to expand the nearby airport, they just took the walls of Kowloon Wall City. When Chinese refugees flooded to Hong Kong after the war, they instinctively gravitated towards the walled city. And even without a physical wall, these new buildings were built almost the exact same footprint of the original wall, forcing it to expand upwards and inwards. It's probably one of the conditions that forced it to become such an interconnected city, but also what made it deteriorate so quickly over time. This was the only place in the city where you could actually see the sky and get some fresh air. And it was also the social heart of the community. And in fact, even though they didn't have a government, the residents self-organized to fix problems as they came up. To deal with crime, they formed groups of volunteers to escort single women, and when the Hong Kong government released plans to demolish the city, they organized the Kowloon City Anti-Demolition Committee that fought against the plan for years. Even the Five Triad gangs organized garbage cleaning teams and settled disputes between businesses. The courtyard was built around the Yamen, the office building from the ancient military fort built back in 1845. The building went through multiple hands, from the Christian Evangelist Commission, where they held schools, to the Old People Center. But it was preserved, and the courtyard as a whole became so essential to the community that the community restricted any new construction in this area. I think the preservation of this courtyard is kind of fascinating. It speaks to our need for continuity and stability, even in an ever-evolving chaos like Kowloon Wall City. It speaks to our natural tendency to gravitate around any kind of link to the past, and how these physical anchors can become the bedrock of a community. The Yamen buildings are all that remains of the city now. In 1994, Kowloon Wall City was finally demolished, and what was once a chaotic, pulsating hive of human life has been replaced with a peaceful Chinese garden. I'm sure it was necessary, but I can't help but feel a weird kind of emptiness. This raw, gritty, energetic urban anomaly has been sanitized, erased from this world, existing only in the minds of people who live there, but quickly fading into distant memories, into hazy dreams, or even nightmares. But there's also a belief that the essence of a place, its soul, can transcend a physical dimension. So maybe the spirit of Kowloon Wall City still lingers on. I want to know what you guys think about this crazy city. Let me know in the comments. There were some really fantastic books that we referenced in our research. Some were super analytical, some were extremely beautiful, and some were extremely rated R. If you're interested in any of these, we'll leave them in the description. We also have a research booklet if you guys want to check it out. I'll leave that in the description as well. And with that, I'll see you guys in the next video.